Okay.
Hi, my name is Travis Lindsay. I am a professor of entrepreneurship at Cal State Fullerton, manager at our Center for Entrepreneurship and Incubator, and then also a co-founder of an investment fund called Titan Angels. And here with me today is MJ. Met her through through our efforts at the Incubator. She is currently starting a business, and I just wanted to get a chance to talk with you, MJ, about what you do. So can you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Travis, for this opportunity. My name is MJ Outcault Hill, and I am the founder of urhistory.com. You can find it at www.ur-history.com, and I report on local history and the pioneers that were the first entrepreneurs in California.
Yeah, and I think that that's important that you mentioned that. I think that's that pioneer spirit. I mean, that's something that all entrepreneurs have to have because you're doing something that's completely different. So is that at least in part what attracted you to California history in particular?
I started reporting California history and specifically the history of Coachella Valley, which is my birthplace, about 15 years ago. And I began researching the pioneers that rode up on horseback and created something out of a plot of land. And they arrived to homestead land, and these pioneers virtually created our cities and towns, one town at a time, throughout California.
So this is a question that you may have gotten before, but do you remember the game Oregon Trail?
Vaguely. I've actually been a teacher myself, and I have taught California history, U.S. history, and some anthropological history. So it is not a game that I played with my students, but I have heard of it.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you how accurate that is, and then just from my perspective, I remember playing it when I was a kid in school and whatnot. And sure, you did learn a little bit about history, but you also learned a lot about entrepreneurship and managing resources and all that stuff. So it was a fun game all around. But so moving on from that, California history, the pioneers, is that going to be the primary focus of your website, ur-history.com, or is it going to span, the gamut, before the settlers, after the settlers? What's the span of your website? What's it going to cover?
So I report from 1850 to 1930, right before the Great Depression, and right after the opportunity became available to homestead land for a very small fee, as long as you farmed it and built a structure on it for 5 years. And for example, the gentleman in back of me, he is an entrepreneur that built his home in the desert just by riding around the desert on his horse and finding materials to create his multi-room adobe. This is Cabot Yerxa. He started out at 16 years old with a handful of cigars, and he rode up to the Yukon, or traveled up to the Yukon, and made his first 10,000 in the late 1800s from selling cigars to the Yukon gold miners. So he was quite the entrepreneur at an early age.
So you tell me he built all of that that's behind you by just getting on his horse and just going around and rummaging?
Yes, and just rummaging the desert.
Wow. And so, I mean, so from your perspective, does that kind of encapsulate the California, get it done kind of ethos?
It does. And it's absolutely a making something out of just an idea. And, he didn't have a straight shot to his homestead. He took the money that he made from the cigars and he invested in an orchard. And his orchard was frozen, completely frozen in a freak, freezing situation in Riverside. And he turned around and made it all back. So he is really the essence of our entrepreneurial spirit in California.
Gotcha. And so from 1850 to 1930. But before that, you said 10,000. He made about $10,000 by the end of the 1800s. I mean that.
Quite a bit of money back then.
No, yeah. I was just thinking. I mean, like, what is that in today's dollars? I mean, that's got to be in excess of maybe $1 million.
Over $1 million, yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty impressive. And he was just selling cigars.
Just selling cigars to the gold miners. I'm sure, was a capitalist, and the gold miners had plenty of gold in their pockets, and probably those cigars looked pretty good at the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, actually, as a quick aside, the people who made their money during like the gold rush, 1849 and beyond, it wasn't the gold miners. It wasn't the guys who were going out to the streams and panning for gold. It was the guys who sold the picks and axes and cigars.
And the groceries.
In the groceries, yeah. So it's just if you're watching this, keep that sort of thing in mind. It's not necessarily that you have to go out there panning for gold in the freezing water. I mean, there's other ways to make a lot of money that are actually a lot less risky, and you end up making a lot more money that way.
The entrepreneurs saw an opportunity. There were the entrepreneurs that built the roads. They arrived ahead of the pioneers to build roads. There were the entrepreneurs that dug wells because you had to have water. Many of our entrepreneurs were farmers and ranchers, and you had to have that well in order to homestead your land.
So absolutely. So I was starting off. So 1850 to about 1930. That's your area of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
What did you see as like the main difference for the evolution in the way that like California as a state was ran, and the kinds of people that were coming into the state during that time?
There were as many diverse people coming into the state then, I think, as there are now. There were the freed slaves that came to California to start their dream. There were the farmers that saw an opportunity in California because there were other areas in other states that were actually becoming impacted. So California became the dream to make it big, and many did. Many did very well.
Gotcha. And so, if you're talking to your customer, again, ur-history.com, I mean, why should they care? I mean, like, what's the big thing that they can get from coming to your site?
So number one, I am the resource for the pioneers, information on the pioneers and how each city in California began. There are 58 counties in California, and within those counties are numerous cities that each have their own story and their own set of pioneers. Those pioneers, their names are on buildings and streets and all, parks, and many of the other civic structures. These pioneers set the stage for what we are doing as pioneers today. They are my rock stars, and I report on the everyday people. They came here with their babies, and they came here with their mules, and they created something out of a piece of land. And to me, that is absolutely amazing. We are not starting from that sort of scratch. We have something to build on as entrepreneurs now. And to look back at these first men and women that made their way in California, it's quite inspiring.
Gotcha. And who do you think would be perfect for being a customer of yours? Would it be schools themselves, or children, or adults, or all the above?
It's actually all of the above. First and foremost, I have the people that are working on their ancestry. UR History picks up where ancestry leaves off, and once you've done your genealogical tree and researched your relatives, the interest we're finding shifts to our own towns, and either the place that we're living or the place that our relatives lived. And it's very interesting and of interest for those of us that have completed their genealogical research to then go and look at how each town began. That's one segment. Another segment is that I am the resource for those people that want to travel and research a place before they get there or once they've arrived. And I am the resource for the pioneers that began each city or town. Another element is I used to be an elementary school teacher, and the social studies Common Core standards do suggest that we study the history of our local area. And so another resource I'm hoping to become is for those teachers and those students that are researching local history. And when you talk to the librarians are also very supportive and available for that sort of research.
Very cool, very cool. And from what I know about the history during that time, I mean, California was extremely dynamic. How are you going to showcase that history on your site?
So we've got one post for each city in California, and they are gathered together by county. And as we post a new entry, we also make an announcement on our blog, and we've got a blog format. And from there, we also are looking for patrons to support us. And if you click on the Patreon button on our site, you can be a supporter, and in exchange for being a supporter, we will send you a trading card of the pioneer that's highlighted, and you'll have a collection of trading cards to keep as your own if you are one of our patrons.
Very cool, very cool. So is there anything else that you would like people to know, either about yourself? Well, here's the question. I mean, so why did you exactly want to start this? I mean, you've been a teacher for many years. You do this all the time, so it makes sense on that front. But starting a business, I mean, especially now, it's a dicey situation for so many people in so many situations. So why now?
You know, this is my life's work. I began researching local history about 15 years ago. I taught for a number of non-credit programs at different colleges, and I found that there was a great deal of interest in knowing the pioneers and knowing the history of a place. What I also found is that visiting the local historical societies and museums, oftentimes they were not very well known unless they, unless that person actually did some work with them through the city. And I believe that the history of the cities is an untapped resource and is very interesting for a lot of the lessons that we are relearning today in terms of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, getting started from nothing, taking an idea and growing it into a tangible reality. Those are all lessons that the pioneers can teach us. And they are in my opinion, our heroes are our pioneers are our everyday heroes. They started out with just a family and just a few seeds in a bag, and became suppliers of our food source and supported their families. So to me, each pioneer's story is quite an inspiration for us all.
Very cool. And I mean, you told the story about the guy in the background. What was his name again?
Cabot Yerxa.
Cabot Yerxa. Okay.
You can see his name up on his building, Cabot. It's Cabot,
oh, okay.
Indian Pueblo.
Gotcha. Do you have any other interesting stories about some of the pioneers that you like to share? Maybe one or two, just to get people interested.
Yeah. So we have the McCallums of Palm Springs. They were the first family to move into the area, and Judge McCallum was a lawyer in Sacramento. He became discouraged fighting the robber barons, the railroads in Sacramento, and he moved out closer to Palm Springs. Two of his sons came down with tuberculosis, and he was appointed as an Indian guide. he came, or an Indian agent, I'm sorry. And as an agent and in meeting with our Palm Springs local Indians, he was told that our hot springs were a curative source for people with ailments. This was, of course, before we knew how to treat TB. He brought his sons out, started his farming business, and his sons lived longer lives because of the curative climate here. And little known fact, Palm Springs became a TB hospital, and doctors put TB patients on the railroad and sent them out to Palm Springs to live a more comfortable life because it was so dry. When the Palm Springs residents and Judge McCallum decided that they wanted to make Palm Springs a tourist attraction, they moved the TB camp out to Indio, California, which is east, and built a couple of hotels. And Palm Springs became a tourist attraction, and people would come out to the railroad track. The hotels would pick them up in their horse and buggy and take them into the hotels in Palm Springs. And it evolved into a tourist community. But it was originally a place to rest and recover if you had, some of those old illnesses that we didn't have cures for at that time.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's not good that they sent the TB camp eastward, but I mean, other than that, I mean, that's interesting. So that's basically how Palm Springs was founded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are plenty of streets and buildings that are named after the McCallum family.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, those stories have always interested me, like the founding stories, and I'm sure that they're like even now, like in California, all the different cities have their own like founding myths and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And on your website, are you gonna report like I guess the best way to put this is like exactly how do you report it? Do you mm-hmm. talk about the mythological aspects of it, yes. and then also try to tease out what the actual facts were?
Mm-hmm. So we identify the wives' tales versus the documented historical facts, and if there is some sort of a question, we'll make a note on that too. And that's the procedure for historians. Historians will report on the fun stories. For example, the local lore for Laguna is that one of their pioneers was a prisoner on a ship and jumped ship and swam to Laguna and became one of the pioneers. We're not sure about that, but that's a great story, right? Yeah. A real story is that Newport Beach was discovered by the owner of a paddle wheel ship who decided to go inland when he saw sort of a marshy area. And he named Newport Beach the New Port. And that's how Newport Beach got its name.
So not necessarily the most creative naming guy, but
right.
Founding Newport Beach, I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And okay, so I think we're running up against time here a little bit. Okay. Do you have anything else that you would like to share with people that they can find you on Facebook, your website, ur-history.com, yes. On Patreon, and I'll put the links to all this stuff in the description as well.
Thank
but is there anything else that you would like people to know about you and your website?
We are looking to interact with lovers of history on Facebook. The Facebook address is UR History California, no dots or dashes. And we are looking to hear from you. And what I'm really excited about is coming soon, we will have a crowd sharing resource where those of you in the community, in any community in California, will be able to upload your personal family photos along with commentary. And I will be announcing that on Facebook when that is up and running. So I'm very excited to have lots of participation and be able to see and share the personal photos from all over the city, every city in California.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like from a personal note, I know my grandmother, she looked into the whole family genealogy, traced it all the way back to Scotland, all that stuff. There's that television show about researching the heritage of different like movie stars and celebrities. People love this stuff. People actually like history. I mean, if somebody does it in an engaging way and talks about the real history of California or literally wherever, there's an audience for that. So I really love your concept. And this is really cool. So thank you very much, MJ, for taking some time today to talk with me. And
thank you so much for the opportunity, Travis.
yeah, absolutely. And we'll be in touch. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
So that was really good.
Okay.
I liked it. Is there anything that you that we should add, or are we good?
I think we're good at this time. I'm new to